One.
And we're live?
We're live.
We're live? All right. Well, it's, I know we're going to have to give it a couple of minutes here, get some people logging on.
Yep.
They may be surprised. We missed last week. That just couldn't be helped. I didn't have enough forethought to get a stand in. But we're back this week. Kind of give me a nod when we're getting some,
Got a few.
getting a few on. Anyway, guys, hey, it's Thursday night. It's 7 o'clock, so that means it's time for Thursday Night Live at the Gun Shop. And, you know, I'm back. The tree tried to kill me, but I'm back. And I guess, I need to say a quick thank you to a lot of people. There's a lot of people, just like, I got no idea how many. So many that have sent messages and, calls into the shop or social media posts or whatever means that come through.
John Miller said, "Hi, Tom. Welcome back."
John.
Nikki Jackson said, "I'm here."
Nikki. I just want to say thank you to all of you. Believe it or not, somebody either read every one of those to me or called me and told me, or and a couple of times when I got pretty low, that was what kind of helped get me up and get me through. So thank you guys.
Nathan Smith said, "Welcome back." Randy Peepaw Seymour, Santa Claus, said, "Welcome back. Glad you are better."
We're on the recovery road. I'm not walking real good yet. I've still got my walker over there.
You're walking way better than you think you are.
First time since the accident that I've actually got real clothes on. It's either been a hospital gown or like lounge pants and stuff.
Have you got you one of those chairs in the shower so you've been able to take a shower yet?
Honestly, we're having to do it outside the shower. My house was built in 1946.
Bathroom.
So it's big. Got the bathroom's like this big, and the damn side of the tub's this high.
I got you.
So
Eric said, "Glad to see you on live again, Tom."
Thank you, Eric.
Chris Lawler said, "Welcome back."
Chris. Glad everybody's tuning in. Guys, I think we got a great show for you tonight. If you want to find the one man that can out-talk me, I went and found him.
You did.
I promise you I went and found him. I just wished one day maybe I'll get to his level. But you guys have heard me. I do the TFA commercials every week. We talk about TFA. We talk about GOA. You hear us mention Richard Archie quite a bit. Well, here he is, live and in person, sitting next to me. Richard, what is your, I know you got some kind of title at TFA.
Yeah, my official title at TFA is I'm the West Tennessee Director. And I'm also the chapter leader of the West Tennessee Regional Chapter, which meets in Jackson every third Thursday of each month at the Old Country Store. We get together at 5:30 for a meal, and then we have normally a speaker come in, let him give his stump speech, and it'll be a DA or a representative or a senator or a mayor, candidates for that or people that are actually in office. And then after we let them give their 25-minute stump speech, we put them in a skillet and ask them questions. And so pretty much every person that's ever come through West Tennessee to run for office has been to the TFA because they know that we're politically astute and that we're paying attention and we punch way above our weight, and so it makes sense for them to come in. Now, I've started videoing the meetings down there, so now I can replay those. The best one that we've had that was videoed, and you can find it on our YouTube channel at Tennessee Firearms Association, was Monty Fritz. And he is a representative from up in the Kingston area in East Tennessee. He and his wife drove down, but Monty is one of the best legislators in the House. He is a Army veteran. He spent a lot of time over in the sandbox, and he is actually a true rocket scientist type guy. He started working when he was about 15, 16 years old over at what they call the nuclear plant. And then he moved on up and went to college and got his degree and went back as an engineer, I think. But he's really smart and he's a really good hand. But he drove down and we put up his whole speech, and it's on the YouTube channel for Tennessee Firearms Association, as well as a number of my videos that I put together. And I've started doing shorts because I found out that the average attention span in the United States is about 35, 40 seconds. And so the shorts have to be done in 59 seconds or less. Now, for a person that likes to talk as much as I do, that's a sore trial for me to be able to get done that quick. However, I have started mastering getting a script down and then putting it together and running it. And so I'm beginning to get some followers on the YouTube channel for that, but we could certainly use a lot more, because what you will find out is we will give you information that's necessary for you to call your representatives and senators with and get them to do the right thing. And characteristically across the board, they don't do that unless you shine sunlight on them. And the way to do that is to either show up at the legislature or to call and to write. And so that's what we try to do, is to try to get those folks lined up with the citizens so that they know what they're supposed to do.
John Miller said, if you're a TN gun owner, you need to join TFA.
I appreciate
that's
that.
A fact. That's a fact.
That's a true statement.
Raymond Dominguez, how are y'all going? How's
Hey,
your night
Ray.
going? Haven't seen Raymond in a while.
Hope things are going well for you. Hope school's going well. So we're going to kind of, guys, we're going to kind of do a maybe question answer format. Is that good with you, Richard?
I'm good, yeah.
Now, also, questions are open for you guys. Okay? You guys can put it in the comments. Stephanie's standing back there reading them. If we see questions come through, she will get your question presented, and if it's for me, I'll be glad to answer it, but more than likely it's going to be for Richard, and I know he'd be glad to answer it.
I'll do the best I can.
So, Richard, let's talk. Okay, we're going to back up just a little bit, okay? You know, what would we tell the people, a very quick synopsis of TFA's history?
Okay. TFA was founded 30 years ago. We have our 30-year anniversary coming up. But John Harris and a group of his friends up in the Nashville area, you weren't able to carry a handgun or a firearm of any type in Tennessee. Well, actually, you could carry a long gun at that time because, well, no, you couldn't, because they did that in 86. So in 94, they got together and decided that they would propose to the legislature a handgun carry permit situation. John's an attorney, and so he wrote the stuff, and he got a couple of Democrats to carry the bill because there weren't the Republicans that were Second Amendment friendly at the time. And we got that bill passed, but it was May issue. And if you understand what May issue means, you still had to go to the sheriff of your county and either grease his palm with some 20s or 100s to get him to let you have a permit, or you were out of luck. So that kept the politics in it, and it was such a complete mess that the next year we were able to go back to the legislature and change it to shall issue. And so now you've got a list of things that you have to comport with. They can't have videos of you eating a baby on TV or something. You know, if you're a felon, you can't get it. So if in fact you are not a felon, if you hadn't been beating your wife and her call it in, you hadn't been arrested for domestic assault, all these things that they've got criteria for, they have to give you a permit in Tennessee. That's what they call shall issue. And so we went 94 to 95, we changed over to shall issue, and it has worked really well. But what we've been trying to do since that time is to take it from being a defense against prosecution, because that's what a permit is. It's still a crime in Tennessee. The code section is 3917-1307A1 that says it's an offense to carry a firearm or a club with the intent to go armed. And so from 95, when we got the shall issue, until now, we've been attempting to get the state of Tennessee back to the original construct of the 1796 Constitution that said simply that the free men of this state have a right to keep and to bear arms for their common defense, period. And so what we're trying to do is to get the legislature to allow us to change that back from the mess that we've got now that has a codicil added in 1870 that says, however, the legislature shall have power by law to regulate the wearing of arms with a view to prevent crime. That's so open-ended that it is still a crime in Tennessee for you to carry a handgun, and now, since 1986, a rifle with the intent to go armed. And you and I had talked a little bit earlier that Tennessee is one of only 7 states that makes it a crime to carry a loaded long gun. And that's New York, New Jersey, Massachusetts, Maryland, Illinois, Florida, and Tennessee. That's a great group of people to run around with.
You know, and there's 2 in there. What the hell is DeSantis doing?
Well, that was Rick Scott got that bill passed down there before DeSantis came in. Now, he could change it if he wanted. That was red flag law. The whole point of the matter is that the southern states across the board were ruled by the Jim Crow era after the end of the Civil War. All right, and so Jim Crow wanted to be sure that the freed black slaves didn't have the ability to carry firearms for their self-defense. And so they put all these knuckle-headed laws in place to make sure that the freed slaves couldn't do that. By the same token, what it did was it took the rights away from everybody else. It's kind of like they're doing right now with these red flag laws and stuff. Somebody goes out here and, you know, his girlfriend calls and said, well, he slapped me last week, and they run into his house at 2 o'clock in the morning, shoot his dog, and kill him in the hallway of his house without any due process. It's awful the way our government treats rights which pre-existed the foundation of this nation. If you go to Heller, now you know what the Heller decision is?
I do.
2008. Scalia quoted the Cruikshank case that said the only thing that the Second Amendment does is put a chain on the government. It doesn't give you your right to arms. That was given to you by God. And the Second Amendment only means that it shall not be infringed. And that's the whole thing. In Heller, that's what Scalia quoted, and that's what he said. And so now you've got all these different governmental agencies. They've got a big deal going before the Supreme Court right now trying to get certiorari on that Snope case, which would then end the ability of states to ban AR-15s, okay? The only way we're ever going to win this is in the courts, because you can't get the legislature to do anything. We've been doing our best to do away with the intent to go armed in Tennessee since I've been working on it, and that was from 96 until now. I have given up every day of vacation to go to the legislature to advocate. I'm not a lobbyist, because as far as I'm concerned, that's an ugly word. Them boys go up there, and I was at a meeting at one of the legislators' little fete that they do up there, where we all go in there and drop a check in a bowl. You can't hand it to them personally. I like the way the state parses this. You can't give them money, but you can drop it in a bowl and they can pick it up later. Isn't that something to behold? Yeah. Anyway, I was in there and I had deposited my check because this was a good guy. And there was this group of lobbyists standing around. They had, and one of the ladies who worked for an electric cooperative said, and who do you work for as a lobbyist? And I said, I'm not a lobbyist, and I don't pretend to be one and don't want to be one. She said, well, you said that like it was a dirty word. And I said, as far as I'm concerned, it is. Why do you consider that? I said, because you're doing this noise for a living, and I'm doing it to make a difference. That's the difference between me and a paid lobbyist. I don't get paid when I drive to Nashville, and I don't get paid when I go give a speech across the state, which I do a lot. I don't let them pay for my gas or my hotel rooms or my meals. I do this stuff because I got a house full of little granddaughters over there that I want to leave as well situated as I can. And right now, they're under the gun of the legislature because they have failed in their responsibility to allow us to enjoy the rights and privileges enumerated in the Declaration of Rights of Tennessee.
And you know, Richard, here's the thing. A lot of people say, well, you guys are just arguing about gun rights. No, we're not. We're not. We have a sitting Supreme Court justice right now that has publicly said we have to do something about this First Amendment.
Yeah.
It's in our way of regulating
Yes.
speech.
Uh-huh.
Got a question.
All right.
John Miller said, where do we stand in engaged in the business per ATF?
Okay.
He said, I understand TFA did something to block it, injunction, question mark.
That is correct. If you are a member of TFA or GOA, either one of those two, because we sued conjointly together with Ken Paxton in Texas, and we won a restraining order against ATF to be able to enforce that against members of TFA and GOA. So if you are a paid member of either one of those organizations, then you are not under the stricture of ATF in what they're trying to say. If you want to sell a gun or you want to give one to your grandkids, you have to carry it to an FFL dealer and it's got to go on the books. And the whole thing about that entire operation is to make sure that they register every gun in the United States. Now, I've got my grandfather's old .22 single shot Springfield rifle, and I'm going to give that to my grandson. Under that rule, I would have to bring it in. And you know what? It was made before there were serial numbers on guns. People don't understand that wasn't always the thing in the United States.
It was only in law. It was only put in law after 1968.
That's correct. So guns that were made before then don't have serial numbers. So why does ATF want to require us to do all that kind of noise? It's just simply to control us and to make sure that every gun is registered so that they know where they're at when they get ready to come take them up. But if you're a member of TFA or GOA in Tennessee, you're not under those strictures now.
All right. John Miller said another reason to become a member.
That is correct.
Zach Moore said, good to see Tom up and griping about something. You missed him earlier today, too. He and his son were here.
Cool. Well, I will be here tomorrow working in the back office. Probably won't be up front much. It's just kind of a hassle to get from point A to point B a lot. But I will be in the back office since Georgie's off tomorrow. Trying to catch up on some of my ordering and talking to some distributors and helping them call in guns and doing 4473s and so forth. So yeah, I do plan on being here all day tomorrow.
Speaking of that nasty form that you just mentioned, the 4473, how many times has it been adjusted in the last 3 years?
In the last 3 years, Richard, if I'm not mistaken, I think it's 4.
Yeah.
And when I went to the last compliance
We're
training,
going to do
whatever,
it again soon.
yeah, they said there's another change coming.
Well, what would this be? Whether we have ever been in a women's bathroom or something?
No, that would put you on their good side.
Yeah, probably.
Who knows what it is? They ask you, are you going to sell it in two or three different questions?
And you notice now it actually brings in ammunition.
Yeah,
Yes.
It does. And here's the thing. If you go back to the Andrews v. State case, and I challenge everybody in the state of Tennessee that really has an interest in the Second Amendment, they need to go find the Andrews v. State case from Tennessee Supreme Court in 1871, which was a year after we changed the Constitution. Okay? And what they said in that case was that the state of Tennessee, attempting to deny an individual the ability to carry a firearm for any reason at any place at any time, was outside of the constraints of the Tennessee Constitution. And they were talking about handguns basically, and they said, and by the way, and this was quoted in Heller, they used this particular thing and said, and by the way, there was no law saying that you couldn't carry a long gun in Tennessee at the time. Everybody needs to understand that the first time it was a crime in Tennessee to carry a long gun was in 1989.
6.
89.
89.
89.
I told you you're smarter.
Here's the point about this. If you remember, lot of the guys that come in here went to school around here, and a lot of them know me from Mile, and I played football over there, graduated in 71. We kept our shotguns and our rifles in the back window for pickup trucks. It was absolutely legal to do it that time. We carried them on school grounds, and it was lawful. And so all this noise that they're talking about now is made up propaganda by the mainstream media and the liberals that want to take your rights away from you, because we didn't shoot anybody at that time. I can guarantee you. I can remember playing Humboldt, and that was a big rivalry. Trenton, Humboldt, and Milan. That was the three towns, and every year it was a big deal. We might have had a fist fight or two, but we'd never shoot nobody. What kind of noise is this? And now you can't even drive down the street. A lot of people don't understand, if you're within 1,000 feet of a school and you got a gun in the car, you're actually violating federal law.
We do have a gentleman asking, how do they join TFA?
It's real simple. Go to www.tennesseefirearms.com, and if you look on there, it will have a spot on the right-hand side that will say join, and you can do it on the internet right there. That's the simplest thing to do. Put your credit card in, and you can take care of it right there. It's $35 a year for an individual membership, $45 for a family. You can do a life for $500, but you can do it right there on the internet, and that's the quickest and easiest way to do it.
This is true. So, Richard,
You said Tennessee Firearms.
TennesseeFirearms.com. And I want to talk at some point before we get done tonight about the fact that we have instituted not just a 501c4, which is the Tennessee Firearms Association, and the PAC that we have, that we give money to good representatives and senators, and we spend money in opposition to bad ones, and there's a bunch of them. But anyway, we have now the Tennessee Firearms Foundation, which is a 501c3, which is a charity. And so if you just got gobs more money than you know what to do with, and you want a place to put it and take a tax dodge at the same time, you can write a check, Tennessee Firearms Foundation. And our mission statement is we simply use every dime of that for litigation against the state to regain the original construct of the 1796 Constitution. And we've got a couple of different lawsuits going right now. You remember that noise down in Memphis when they put that referendum on the deal that said they were you couldn't carry a firearm or a handgun in Memphis, unless you had an enhanced carry permit. Second to that is you could not own, possess, purchase, or carry a assault rifle. They didn't define what that was, but said you couldn't. Then thirdly, they said they were going to institute a red flag law. All three of those are in contravention to statutes of Tennessee. There is this thing called a preemption clause, and the state preempted every bit of that, so we have sued the city of Memphis under 1314, which is a code section that says if you step outside the bounds of what you can do, then you can be sued for it. And we filed suit about that the week after they passed that. Now, we haven't had a hearing yet. We filed it on the 13th of November, and we have not been before a judge yet. Justice delayed is justice denied. But that's the way they do that mess down there. And you can see what's going on with Senator Brent Taylor. And he's fighting that judge down there, Anderson, that keeps turning people loose on their own recognizance that have shot and killed people or attempted to kill them. And Mulroy, who is their DA down there, who just won't file the right charges, and he won't make the judges give the right bail. And so Brent Taylor's doing his best under what he calls the Make Memphis Matter, but he just won a federal lawsuit against Memphis and their restorative justice groups down there, where the federal courts came back and said, no, the law you passed requiring bail, and you can't say that you don't have money to pay it and let you out for that. He won his lawsuit on that, and so Memphis is now under the stricture that the judges have to set a basal amount of bail for a certain type of crime, and that's a big win for all of us in the state. So we kind of co-joined with Taylor down there on that stuff, and we've been working with him, and he's a real good man. We're looking forward to him helping us carry bills that will actually restore the Second Amendment in Tennessee. because we haven't been able to get much help out of the folks around this part of the world, in the Senate especially. Now, the House has been really good. Chris Todd, who is my representative, is one of the best there. He actually carried my bill 3 years ago that said if, in fact, you were required to use deadly force to protect yourself or somebody that you're responsible for, you could not be sued civilly until such time as the criminal aspect of that case had been determined. And the reason that's a great big deal, if you had to shoot somebody coming into your house and his mother said, oh, he was just a great kid and he was going to get his life together and straighten everything up and you shouldn't have shot him. And so they start suing you civilly at that point while you're trying to fight a criminal case, they're going to break you. Mm-hmm. And so what we did was we got a bill passed. Chris was the sponsor for it, and he got it through that says they can take all the interrogatories they want to and all the evidence, and they can bring you in and take your statement, and you can take witness statements and hold it, but you can't carry you to court. You don't have to hire a separate attorney until such time as the criminal aspect is determined. If you ain't a criminal, if they don't prove that you did something wrong, that mess goes away. That's a great big deal, and Chris Todd was the sponsor that carried that, and he carried it for TFA. Now, one of the things that you have to know, the oath of a legislator in Tennessee says that they will vote without favor, affection, partiality, or prejudice. All right? That's what they say. They raise their hand, because I've been up there for the last 2 terms and swear to God that that's what they're going to do. But if you carry a bill in now and it's got TFA fingerprints on it, no, leadership ain't going to let it go. And they will tell you quite well, if you won't get something passed, you need to find somebody out there that is not affiliated with TFA and, get somebody that nobody hates and get them to carry it, and you might be able to get it through. If TFA puts their stamp on that bill, it has no chance. Why? It's because we have citizens who don't get involved. And all you got to do, even if you don't want to join TFA, you can go to our website and you can go in there and subscribe to our email list that during the session we send out every week and tell you every bill that's on notice, what's running, who's fighting it, and who's fighting for it. You'll be the best informed individual in the room if you will simply go to TFA and take those emails every week. Won't cost you a dime.
Richard, it's often said, you can judge a man better by his enemies than by his friends.
Oh, absolutely.
So,
John's asking, what are your thoughts on handgun carry insurance? Can you recommend anything?
If you want to insure yourself against that, I guess it's okay. I don't carry insurance per se, but I'll tell you what I do have. I have 2 of the different deals where I pay them so that I've got representation.
I think that's what John's referring to.
Okay, if that's what he's talking about, then absolutely you need to have that, because what you've got to have, number one, and we give out cards that say that, here's how you answer any question that law enforcement asks you at the end of a shooting. Bumpkus, you don't say nothing. You'll say, hey, let me tell you what, I was fearing for my life, and I think I'm having a heart attack, and you need to carry me to the hospital, get checked out, and I ain't talking to you till I have counsel present, period. Now, I don't care if they've got video of a guy trying to rob you and you shooting him. Let me tell you, depending on where that occurs, all you got to do is go up to the Delkey case in Nashville where a cop was chasing a dude down the street and the guy turned the corner and shot at him. He rounded the corner and killed him, and what they did was they put the cop in prison. They called it manslaughter, and so what he had to do is he had to cop a plea not to get first-degree murder or even something else. But he copped a plea to manslaughter. He lost his job. He lost his pension. Can't ever own a gun again. And he was a police officer in the process of his business at that time. It wasn't one of these where he hunted him down and just shot him. So if you don't think that can't happen with the right DA, you got soft spots in your head.
Yep.
Well, it happens. It happens frequently.
Yeah, and it does.
Now, you mind if I speak to John's question right now?
No, go ahead.
John, I've done a lot of looking at this, and there's a lot of, if you will, pissing and moaning between different companies. There's a couple I have decided I just ain't gonna fool with. Mm-hmm. Okay? One is USCCA, and the other is attorneys on retainer.
Yeah. I met them at the GOA this year.
It's just no.
Again, this is your opinion.
My opinion. I do carry one, and I'm personally not that crazy about the parent company. However, as far as their track record, U.S. Law Shield.
Yeah, they're pretty good.
U.S. Law Shield, I don't know of any true negatives about. I use Right to Bear.
Yep. Chris Todd just joined us, by the way.
Hey, Chris. Sorry, I will try to call you, brother. It's just been tough. This first time I've been out of the house with clothes on. I'm not. Thank you for calling me back. I'm sorry I missed it. But I personally have went with Right to Bear. They just don't seem to have.
Chris said, "Glad to see you, Tom. Got to watch that guy next to you."
You know,
I bear watching, that's for sure.
the one thing that makes tonight better right now is if we had Chris here.
Yeah,
Right?
we'd get him between us.
Yeah, get him in the middle and make a Chris sandwich.
Well,
is that what you call pressure?
That is what you call pressure. Now, I will say this, that Article 1, Section 23 of the Tennessee Constitution says that you're supposed to instruct your representatives.
It's true.
Okay? And so I take that seriously. And I know when Chris leaves the house and heads to Nashville, and just about every time he drives up there, I'm on the telephone with him because I got a captive audience. Now, that's what you're supposed to do. And I call a number of the other ones because here's something folks need to understand. If a guy is a committee chairman or he sits on a committee, you're his constituent.
It's a fact.
Because he represents the entire state. So don't let them hand you that noise. Well, where do you live? And we can't talk to you if you're not in our district. That's horse manure.
You know,
Chris said if he was close enough, he'd be here.
Yeah, and he would.
He
He'd
would.
get in his truck and
He
drive over
He,
here.
he
done
has.
Yeah.
I'm not in Chris's district.
No.
I actually live in Brock's district.
Yeah.
And Brock's a great guy.
Brock's a great guy.
I mean, it's just Chris and I have had prior friendships. And hell, when I met Chris, I didn't even know he was elected rep. I hadn't moved. I just moved down here. And we just become friends. And then he's like, he handed me a business card so I'd have his cell phone number.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, okay.
Well, Chris and I have been friends, and I got involved in his first race, and I've been involved in all of his races. And in fact, I've probably been involved way more in his life than he wants me to be. But I take my obligations seriously, and the reason I do this stuff is not to self-aggrandize or to make any money or anything else. I'm doing it for what I consider to be the correct reason, because it's what I'm supposed to do.
Well, it is the duty of a citizen.
Yes.
You know, I think people misunderstand a lot. There's citizens and there's subjects.
That's correct.
Okay? In the United States, we're supposed to be citizens with representatives that we instruct on how to carry out our business as either a city, state, or federal level.
What I try to get people to understand is that the Constitution is simply a contract. That's all it is. Amongst the people, and it's a set of written hiring practices for the servants that we need to do our business of government. Okay? It says how old they can be, where they have to live, and how often they can run and how long their tenure is per each cycle. And then it says that you are required to instruct them. The Constitution in and of itself is simply that. It's a rule book. And they take that oath that we talked about a while ago that said they'll vote without favor, affection, partiality, or prejudice. But I promise you what I do, And if Chris was here, he would admit that this is true. If I'm trying to get something past as TFA, I have to go under the radar, and we can't put our fingerprints on it because there are people there that don't like John Harris, or they don't like me because of previous encounters where we've simply told the truth and they didn't want the people to know it. And so, therefore, what we have to do is we have to kind of slide around the outside, and you know, you don't want to wear your TFA shirt up there because that makes you look bad and stuff. On the other hand, I have made a determination this year. I'm wearing this shirt every day I go to the legislature from now on because I'm too old and I've lost my filter. And we're going to talk to the legislators about the fact that they've been scurrilous in what they've done. In 1796, we ratified the Constitution of the state of Tennessee for the first time. Okay? We formed, and what it says in the preamble, that we've formed a government or constitution. They're the same thing. The Constitution is the government. Okay? And so, therefore, what we should do, and in that, if you go to Article 10, Section 4, it says that the Declaration of Rights hereto annexed is declared to be a part of the Constitution of this state and shall forever remain inviolate. And to hold accountable the individuals that we've elected for this, we declared that everything in the Bill of Rights contained is accepted out of the general powers of government and shall forever remain inviolate. Now, that's pretty strong words. And so if that's what they said, how come in 1801, after we said what the Second Amendment analog is, and that's free men of this state have the right to keep and bear arms for their common defense, they turned around and said it's a crime for you to carry a handgun in 1801. That's 5 years is all it was. That's all the time it took the General Assembly to steal your rights. After they swear to God that they will assent or vote to nothing that would appear to them injurious to the people's ability to enjoy the rights and privileges enumerated in the Constitution. And then they go over to the other one and say, and by the way, we're going to hold everything out of your hands that's in the Declaration of Rights. And they pay no attention to it whatsoever, because right now it's a crime for you to carry a long gun. It's a crime for you to carry a handgun. They'll sell you a defense against prosecution because that's what your permit is. Now, if you have the enhanced permit, it's a defense against prosecution. If you've got this cracker thing out there that's the concealed only, which is the most ridiculous thing that I've ever seen, then that's an exception. And under the governor's so-called constitutional carry, that's an exemption. So you have defenses, exceptions, and exemptions. But brother, under 3917-1307A1, it's still a crime to carry a firearm with the intent to go armed. And the Department of Safety's legislative director testified in the Senate Judiciary Committee when asked the direct question by the chairman, Todd Gardenhire. He said, can you explain what the intent to go armed means? And she kind of fumbled around for a few minutes, and she said, well, if you got bullets in it, you're intending to go armed. Now, if you read the statutes in Tennessee, it's a defense against the crime of carrying a firearm if you don't have ammunition within reach. But what good's that? You got a stick, a pretty expensive stick most of the time. But
Not even a good stick.
No, you'd be better off carrying a hoe handle. As far as that's concerned, you can do more with it and it's easier to maneuver. But the law in Tennessee, passed by the General Assembly, says that it's a crime for you to carry a firearm. And whether it's a long gun, and we never had a statute in Tennessee making it a crime to carry a long gun until 1989. And you can see in that Andrews v. State case that it says, and by the way, there's no law in Tennessee making it a crime to carry a long gun in 1871. So between then and now is when the legislature decided they'd take that right away from us. And we've sat on our thumbs and let them do that.
With that being said, Archie, let's take it a step further. Because I know we've had a so-called Republican supermajority in the state of Tennessee for over a decade.
Yep.
Over a decade. Maybe a decade and a half, roughly.
Yeah, I think the supermajority hit about 2 years into Haslam's deal when they had the second election for representatives. We got the supermajority, and we had a majority prior too, but yeah, about midway. So we, The only thing that I've seen them do so far is increase the budget about $10 billion.
Why? We have all these people who jump up and down and yell, "We're 2A, we're pro-gun, we're on your side, we're the Republicans, we're."
They do that during the election cycle, and we've got a name for them. We call them the Second Amendment Butters Club. And they always go, "Hey, man, I'm all about the Second Amendment, but I don't think you ought to be able to have a magazine that's got over 12 rounds in it or 10 or whatever. Or, I'm all for the Second Amendment, but you don't need these AR-15s. They're weapons of war." So they move over into the Second Amendment Butters Club, as far as I'm concerned. And we have chairmen of committees that have been on the, who's that little guy, Canoe that runs around up there with the Tennessee holler, always yell the truth stuff, carries his little phone, runs around, chases us all down the hall. He caught me in the special session up there, him and the girl from NPR, and they had me backed up against one wall in the hall out between the committee rooms. And by the time I got done, we'd gone all the way across from 3 to 4. And I just kept taking a step and pointing them in the chest. And they used none of it. It was 35 minutes on film. They didn't play 1 second of it. And what he put on Twitter at the end of it, "Well, we talked to the director of the TFA today, and just like always, he refuses to compromise." And I looked at him and I said, "Did you read the website? What does it say? Tennessee's only no compromise gun group." Hey, now,
You tell them that.
Now, he interviewed a chairman of a committee that has a great deal of effect on our stuff, Andrew Farmer. And it was over the bill that Monty French carried last year that would have allowed you to carry rifles and shotguns, okay? And so Canoe asked him, he said, "Do you think we ought to be letting these people carry these AR-15s, these 18-year-olds? No, I don't think we ought to do that. And if it comes to my committee in full, we're going to have to talk about that." And he said that out loud on camera. Now, when it comes time to run for office, he's going to say, "Oh, no, I love the Second Amendment." But when it comes down to the nut cutting, as we put it, he's not going to be on our side, because he's not on our side.
I guess that's one of the things that gets so aggravating is you get these people and they're so entrenched.
Yes.
And it gets to the point good people don't want to be part of a shitty system. And it gets to the point that you take people that could be good legislators, and hell, they can't afford to get into it.
That's correct.
If you're going to try to run, if you're not already independent millionaire.
Well, I don't know that you have to be a millionaire, especially for a house race, because the average house race runs between 30 and 50,000. And if you've got people, see, here's what I keep trying to tell folks: if you want to run for office, you have to start last year to run next year. It takes 2 years to prepare to run for office. You're going to have to set up and start getting name recognition. First off, everybody's got to know who you are, because if they don't know you, they can't vote for you. Secondarily, you need a group of individuals that start putting $25 to $35 a month in a bank account and save that, so that when they get, just like you're paying your utility bill, you need to have folks that will start banking money and saving it up, so that when you get ready to run, you got money for ads, you got money for signs, you got money for travel. And let me tell you, money is the mother's milk of politics. It's that simple. So, quite frankly, if you do it right, you can have a house race normally, unless the establishment gets on their side and they pour in $300,000-$400,000 against you. Let's go back to the Deborah Maggart deal, where us, and at that time the NRA was still working with us, we defeated Deborah Maggart, who was the caucus chair, because she voted against us in the employee safe commute bill. And she said, it's just not a good year to do a gun bill. And so she voted against us and killed it. And when they did that, we decided that we would go after her. And the NRA came in, we had some other strong people, and we garnered up about $100,000 against their $500,000 that they put in. And it's really hard to beat an incumbent, especially when, here's the thing that gets me about the dang legislature. And I'm going to talk about a situation I think y'all saw last week. We had the caucus leader of the Senate got popped for DUI down in Georgia. You see him walking when he did his DUI check up and down the street?
I haven't seen it.
Oh, you haven't seen that? Oh, you need to watch
I heard
that
about
video.
it, but I haven't seen it.
So, the whole point of the matter is the Republican supermajority is going to support him in his next race. It makes a difference what you do. They can have a video of you eating a baby. As long as you're already an incumbent, they're going to support you.
Have a question.
Okay.
Kyle Petty asks, has David Kustoff been historically friendly to the TFA? He is always vocal pro-second in his emails.
Well, let me tell you the truth about that situation. I can't think that he's ever dropped a dime. He has never been to one of our events. You were at our events last year. You see Mark Green there every year. You see John Rose there every year. You see all these state legislators every year. David Kustoff has never shown up. Not once.
Now, I've seen, the only time I've ever seen David Kustoff's on election years, and they always seem to want to come in here and take pictures. But
at the Reagan Day dinners, if I'm there, he'll say, and there's Richard Archie out there, and he's one of the staunchest supporters of the Second Amendment. But
I don't know.
I'm afraid it's all for show, because I've got a request into him right now. I sent him an email, and then I also called his representative for this area down here and said, I got a simple question for you. Are you a prime co-sponsor of Massey's Constitutional Care for the United States bill that he's put forward? This is not just saying that you have reciprocity from every state. This is a true constitutional care bill where you can carry your rifle, your shotgun, your handgun across state lines anywhere you want to. All right. Has he co-sponsored that bill? I haven't seen it yet, and I haven't received information back that he's going to, because I was specific in my question and said, I'm going to talk about this. You can either get with me and let me know, or I'm going to say that you're not sponsoring it. Because without the knowledge that you are, silence is an admission of guilt as far as I'm concerned. So to answer your question, David Kustoff has not characteristically been a staunch supporter of the Second Amendment. No.
I've always kind of, I hate to say it, at best seen it as neutral.
I don't think he votes against it, because there were two guys. Let me tell you a story about a bill that we were running in the legislature 12 years ago, when Jim Coley was still a member of the House from Memphis. Bless his heart, he's passed away, and he shouldn't speak ill of the dead. And let's see, who was the other senator that just got beat? Got the dog up there. Anyway, two of them voted against us in a bill on the parks. And then they ran down the hall right after the vote, and they changed their vote at the clerk's office, because you can do that. And we had a television camera up there and a guy, and we got word that they were changing the vote down there. And so we called and said, run down there and catch Jim Coley and ask him why he's doing it. He said, well, hell, boy, you can't get elected in my district by voting against the Second Amendment, so I can't have that on my record. So what I think most of them do is during election time, they portend to be Second Amendment friendly, and we put them in that Second Amendment Butters Club, because I have a feeling that you were to ask David Kustoff where he stands on the national constitutional carry and the ability, say in Memphis, which is his hometown and where he's from, and I think he was law partners with the ex-Democrat mayor down there, if I'm not mistaken.
That one I wouldn't be able to speak to.
I can promise that's who his law partner is. And so, across the board, I have not seen him come out with a strong, staunch Second Amendment comment, especially on this latest deal, because right now, with Trump just winning, the iron's hot, and if we don't strike right now, we're going to lose an opportunity to get some stuff done. Here's the fact, across the board. The Second Amendment, your natural right to self-defense, is the true palladium of liberty, and they say that in Heller too. He quotes a deal from the 1800s that says that. And if our government right now is not going to protect your right, let's look at this thing with Daniel Perry. Okay, they tried to put him in prison up there because in the subway he didn't use a firearm, but he looked at that and he said, this guy is trying to harm women and children. and he jumped in the middle of it, and he got the guy down on the ground. They had another black man help him restrain this individual that was a drug addict who was high and trying to harm these women. I mean, they still had a warrant out for him assaulting a woman. He'd hit her. And so what they did was he stopped a criminal from committing a bad act, and yet they put him on trial. Mm-hmm. Instead of giving him an award for stepping up and being a man and doing what he ought to, they locked him up and then put him on trial. Now, thank goodness they found him innocent of the charge, because it was ridiculous. The man was still alive when the police picked him up and carried him in the hospital. He didn't kill him. He died from drugs, just like that other knucklebutt did, that they've got statues all over for, and they burned half the United States cities down over. We've got, because people sit in their house and don't get involved. Pericles was a politician in ancient Greece, and he made this statement centuries ago. Just because you don't take an interest in politics does not mean that politics will not take an interest in you. No truer words have ever been said, because everything that happens every day at the legislature of Tennessee and the one in Washington affects us every day. And if you're not instructing your representatives, then that's your fault. I can promise you that Chris Todd and Rusty Grills and Senator from Jackson, Ed Jackson, and a lot of the other guys that are committee chairs and stuff hear from me weekly during the session. But I can also say with truth and clarity that when I go up and sit in the room while legislation is being discussed in the committees, normally I'm the only Second Amendment advocate there. Now, how sad is that? Well, I've got to work and I've got to make a living. And okay, when they show up on your doorstep to take your guns away from you, and don't you think they won't do that? That's what they're trying to do right now. And they're trying to do it nationwide. And if you think you live in a state that is so red and so free, why is it still a crime for you to carry a firearm?
Kyle Petty said thank you, and Billy Ward said amen.
So I do tend to get up on my haunches and preach, but by the same token, I feel like somebody needs to do it. Now, here's the other thing. I'm going to give the audience 4 things that they need to do. They need to read the Heller case. They need to read the McDonald case. And let me explain a little bit about the McDonald versus City of Chicago case in 2010. The Supreme Court of the United States incorporated the Second Amendment against the states through the Due Process Clause of the 14th Amendment, which in fact makes it a civil right. Okay? We've run a bill. Clay Doggett has run it for us 2 terms in a row. And it gets killed every time in the Senate. And I had a conversation with John Stevens, who is the senator from down here. He said, oh, it's a terrible bill because you'll be able to sue senators if they don't vote for your bills. I said, John, you don't understand the immunity clause. You can't be sued for any vote or any speech or anything that you do as a representative. You are immune from that. Well, I don't like this bill. And so he talked to the rest of his buds and the bill got killed. I talked to a number of the rest of the the committee members in the Senate Judiciary Committee, and they said, well, Stevens told us that's a bad bill. We can't vote for that. So, now, didn't he tell you he was the most Second Amendment friendly guy down here, regardless of what Richard Archie said?
As a matter of fact, standing, if you look over my shoulder, look over my shoulder at the point of that cabinet, we were standing, well, right this side of it.
Yeah.
And yes, that was his exact words.
Now, last year,
and then sent me an email to follow up on it.
Yes,
okay.
we did.
Well, here's the facts. He quashed that bill. Now, we're going to rerun that bill this year. We're going to have a different person do it. Clay said, I'm not going to carry it again. That's why I said, if they ain't going to let me do it, I'm not going to sully my name with it again. So we got another House member that's going to run it. And we're trying right now to get another senator who is a member of the Senate Judiciary Committee to pick it up and run it. There isn't any reason why they don't pass that bill, except for that in it we've got some meat, okay? You pass these bills, say Tennessee's a Second Amendment friendly state, and we don't do anything with it. Yeah, you can make all these proclamations, but that don't mean jack, all right? So what we did in this bill, we said, and if a government official is convicted of the crime of denying you your ability to enjoy the Second Amendment, then we charge you with the felony and we get to get our money back from you and you lose your job. Oh, you can't do that. You know, you just can't. No. Cops are great and all that kind of stuff, and they would never. What about the dude over here? And I believe it was in Dyersburg about 4 or 5 months ago that they charged with official misconduct and oppression because the stupid idiot left his camera on when he gave a certain order to the young lady in the back of the car. And they charged him with official oppression, and he's sitting in jail now. If you understand, these two clauses of the Constitution are vitally important. Number one, all government is founded on the authority of the people, right? That's the first thing that they say. Second thing that they come, well, and let me finish up with that. All power is inherent in the people, and all governments are founded on their authority and instituted for their peace, safety, and happiness. For the advancement of those ends, they have at all times an unalienable, which means they can't take it away from you, and indefeasible, which is if you've ever stepped on a piece of bubble gum in July in Tennessee with a pair of tennis shoes, you tried to get that bubble gum out of them cleats today, you ain't gonna do it.
Nope.
Can't do it, all right?
Not happening.
So indefeasible means you can't give it away because it's God ordained to you. So our rights are unalienable and indefeasible. Now, once you get to that point of it, it says, and however, the people have the right to change government or to do away with it, right? Has anybody read that first piece of the Constitution? All power is inherent in the people, and all free governments are founded on their authority and instituted for their peace, safety, and happiness. And for the advancement of those ends, that they have at all times an unalienable and indefeasible right to alter, reform, or abolish the government in such manner as they may think proper. That's the first rattle out of the box. That's number one. Number two says that government, being instituted for the common benefit, the doctrine of non-resistance against arbitrary power and oppression is absurd, slavish, and destructive of the good and happiness of mankind. So if, in fact, we're supposed to guard against official oppression, right, and they went over here in the statutes and said 3916-403 says that any person under color of official employment, and that's anybody that we pay tax money to, right? That would be teachers, that would be police officers, that would be legislators, that would be the governor, the dog catcher. If you pay them with tax money, they're under this stricture, that they cannot, under any circumstances, attempt to or deny you the rights and privileges enumerated in the Constitution. And if you do that, you're guilty of official oppression, which is a Class E felony. But you know what? They don't ever charge these people. You got judges down here that don't do their job. And it results in them turning people loose that would break into your house and kill you. And they know they have a propensity, which is one of those words lawyers like to use. I got sued one time because my lawnmower threw a rock out in the road, and there was a lawyer driving by the house when we got this letter and said, your lawnmower has rock throwing propensities. And so he said, I wound up having to put his window in for him. Lawyers get by with stuff. What they say in Rome is the first thing to do is kill all the lawyers, but that's not good because if you wind your hiney up in court, the first thing you need to do is get a good lawyer.
Well, difference. There are good, ethical.
And then there's ambulance chasers.
Being a good report.
Yeah.
Take John.
Yeah.
I think John Harris is a man of principle. That
I know he is.
Okay. You know, I can go through here. Joe Tubbs, Joe Bird. You know, there's good.
There's
lawyers.
good and bad in every.
But you know, here's the thing: we can put all the good lawyers over here, and it takes about this much room for them.
Yeah.
And it takes the rest of the store for the
Well,
others.
and see, you've got so many attorneys at the legislature that it's just.
Most all of them are, aren't they?
Well, no, not most all of them, but there's too many. I will say that. And they sit in positions of power. And what most folks don't understand is how you get to be a committee chair. You're not elected by your fellows, and the people don't have a voice in who gets in there. The only person that has any ability to put a committee chair in place is, in fact, the Speaker of the House. And in the Senate, it's the Lieutenant Governor, the Speaker of the Senate. And so they're the god of that. And so if you got a really bad committee chair, you can look directly at the Speaker of the House, because they couldn't be there if it wasn't for him. And people don't get that. The most powerful man in the state of Tennessee is the Speaker of the House, because number one, he controls the budget. Number two, he controls every bill that comes out. So you think about that. The governor only gets a chance. His charge, by the way, is to faithfully enforce the laws of this state. Article 3, Section 10 says the governor of the state shall faithfully enforce the laws of this state. And that's all he's supposed to do. So he's got a pen, and when they pass a bill over here in the legislature and send it to him, he can say yes or no. He can veto or he can sign it, right? That's the two things he can do. It also says in 11 of that same section that he can send from time to time requests for legislation to the General Assembly. But if you look back in 2, it says that we're divided into 3 different branches of government. Legislative, and all laws are made in the legislature. Administrative, which is the governor, and judiciary. And what they do is they rule on it whether it is constitutional or not. There is an individual who has a lot of strength and power who's going to remain nameless right now, but I'm just going to talk about him a minute, that tells the freshmen when they come in, say, hell, boy, we can pass anything we want to. Until a judge tells us it's unconstitutional, we get by with it. Now, I know him personally. I've heard other people say that he said that. That's the way they look at it. All right? So then you got to wind up going to court to try to get these things changed. And it's terrible that you have to sue the state. But in the Gibson County case, by the way, that we've got going right now, I will talk about that. There are 3 different plaintiffs over here, and TFA is just arguing the case. Gun Owners of America is actually the plaintiff in Gun Owners Foundation. All right? And so we sued the Attorney General of the state of Tennessee and the governor, because we said, our plaintiff said that they ought to be able to carry a handgun in the park. It's a public place, right? If you look back at what they said in Heller, they've even got, and remember the old witch up there that was, what was her name? She was
I mean, there's so many. Which one?
No. She was a Supreme Court justice and was there forever.
Oh, Ginsburg.
Ginsburg. They quote Ginsburg in Heller by saying that the Second Amendment simply is the right of an individual to carry a firearm in case of confrontation with another, either offensively or defensively, in public. Now, that's what she said and the Supreme Court has put out. Why doesn't Tennessee, if in fact, in McDonald, the city of Chicago, the Supreme Court of the United States incorporated the Second Amendment against the states, why do we still have this intent to go armed crap on our books? It's unconstitutional. It's been voted by the Supreme Court, but you can't get them to recognize that. And I'll tell you who did recognize it was the Attorney General of the state of Tennessee in the Beeler case 3 years ago up in Knoxville, when some young men sued the state of Tennessee and the director or the commissioner of the Department of Safety and said, at 18 years old, we can be forced to carry a firearm to defend the Republic. Why can't we carry a firearm to defend ourselves? And as long as Bill Haslam's slatery was up there, we could never get a resolution to that. And as soon as Jonathan Skrmetti came into office, he said, wait a minute, I'm not going to defend the state of Tennessee against that charge because it's ridiculous. The challenge scheme of denying an individual who is 18 years old the ability to carry a handgun or to perfect a permit to do the same is a violation of the Second and 14th Amendments. Now, the 14th Amendment is the Civil Rights Clause, right? Which means if you're a citizen of the state, you get all the rights that everybody else gets. And so we look back to the Bill of Rights, and the Second Amendment says that the government cannot infringe on that a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, comma, The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. It's the only time in the Constitution of the Union or any state that those four words are used in tandem. Shall not be infringed. It was so important to the people that had just got through shooting their way out of tyranny with the British that they wanted to be sure that their successors, their children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren on down the line, had the ability to shoot the government if they needed to, that they wanted to be sure that they had arms that were qualified to be used against the army of anybody. Right?
Let's put a pause right there a second, because I want to bring something up.
All right.
Okay? And I when I started listening to you, I was hoping you were going to go where you just went. Because you remember our illustrious president, the one we had, the one that had to change his diaper?
Yeah.
Okay? And he stood up there and talked about being illegal for people to have cannons back in the day. And the majority of the cannons that were used in the Revolutionary War were privately owned.
Well, all of them were, because there was no government to start with. And see, what they had to do is they had to get the privateers to come in, the pirates and such stuff. They're the ones that have the cannons. And so they looked at it and said, we don't want to live under British authority. We're going to come help these guys over here.
So, so here's the thing. It was up to the citizens
absolutely
to bring the artillery.
Not just their artillery, but if you look at how they described the militia, they said that it was the responsibility. In fact, it was the law at the time of the Revolution that every person be required to have a musket or a rifle in good working order, 4 flints, a pound of powder, and a pound of shot. That was a requirement. If you didn't have that, they fined you, gave you one, and you had to pay the government back for it because they required you to be armed. And still to this day, the militia clause is in our statutes. And so every one of us between the age of 18 and 45 is a member of the militia. And when called, we're supposed to show up with weapons that are effective for the use of a militia. If you go back and you look at a couple of cases for Tennessee, they said the only thing that the Constitution, the Second Amendment, covered was those arms that were useful in war. Okay, that's now. The next thing is a .22 pistol, a snub-nose rifle, or a snub-nose pistol. Anything can be used to kill somebody. So they're actually effective for use in war, right? And so this NFA crap that we got going on now that says, oh, you can't have a short barrel. Any shotgun that's under 18 inches is not useful in war. I wonder how many tunnel rats in World War II or in Vietnam had shotguns that had 12-inch barrels on them because it was easy to maneuver in the tunnels. They took hacksaw and cut that bugger off, and they carried it as a weapon of war.
You know, even in the early days of CQB, where we were transitioning from that battlefield military and moving where we were doing more like house raids and perfecting the technique. If you look, first thing everybody did,
they go to short barrels.
is you chop an 870 off in front of the magazine tube.
That's it.
And you would cut the stock off so that when you put that big ass, black jacket looking thing on, you could stick the gun up on it and not be too long.
Right.
So you could get around inside.
People have to understand that the case that got us to the NFA was 2 bank robbers that crossed from Oklahoma into Arkansas. And they caught them with the short barrel shotgun. And they carried them to trial over that. Now, what happened was one of the guys died, and then the other died before it got all the way to the Supreme Court. And there was nobody to argue in their favor because there was nobody there to support. And so the government was the only people in front of the Supreme Court at that time. And so they found it, well, there's really not any real use for a short barrel rifle or shotgun. And so they made it then illegal to have one. And there's no reason for that, except that government is afraid to let people have firearms because they're going to do stuff that makes you want to shoot them. It's that simple. And if people don't get that, they got soft spots in their head. And I ain't got no soft spots in my head. I'm aware of it.
No, it's hard.
Yeah, I'm pretty hard.
It's hard.
It's
let's talk a little more now. Let's get into what we're dealing with, some of the stuff we want to deal with right now. And Steph, I'm going to ask that maybe tomorrow, if you get time,
Yes.
that you get a list of the 4 cases that Richard was talking about, and just maybe
You'll email them to me?
I can do that, certainly can.
and
Thank you.
we'll just pin them
Yeah.
I can do that.
on the page.
If I might for just a minute, let me talk about the line from Heller to Bruin, which is,
Man, you can do anything you want.
all right. So Heller said you can't ban weapons that are in common use.
Right.
Okay? So, looking at today, how many AR-15s do you think there are in private hands? I can tell you, I've got a real good number, but throw a guess out there.
14 to 16 million.
28 million right now. 28
wow.
million AR-15s in private hands, and that don't count what they got stacked up here at every police department. And they got some really nice short barrel suppressed weapons that they use to clear rooms with. I've seen them. I know a guy that makes them. Y'all make that kind of stuff too. I'd love to have one of them. I've got one actually because I paid my tax stamp and I've got it, and you know it's really nice. But
I build you one.
for me to go out of state, I got to call ATF and tell them, say, hey, I'm fixing to go into Arkansas. It's a dangerous place. I don't come in. Well, maybe.
Don't now you have to fill out a form, and
I think so. Yeah.
there's actually a form.
Yeah.
It used to be you wrote a letter
Yeah.
and you said I may be going to these states during this year, and list out the states. And now I think there's a form.
So let me go on from there. That's what Heller said, that you had a right to a handgun, but it also said that you had a right to any weapon that was in common use because they defined what was controlled by government as dangerous and unusual. Okay? And Scalia said every weapon's dangerous, from a pickaxe handle to a 40-inch mortar. They're all dangerous, but they have to be dangerous and unusual because that is what they said at the time of the founding. And so we have to look at text and history to see what was lawful and legal in the United States at the time of the founding, because they say the closer you get to the Declaration of Independence and then the ratification of the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, the more weight any law has. And this stuff that happened in the 1800s is much further away and doesn't carry as much weight. And the crap that's happened in the 1900s has really no effect whatsoever. So we go from that first case, Heller, and the whole thing is you can't ban guns that are in common use, and you can't say a man can't have a handgun in his house. And the reason it didn't go any further is because they had a bunch of culls up there, and Scalia knew that he was going to have to kind of tamp it down a little bit and ramp down what he wanted to get anything passed, and that's politics, okay? Now, Alito gets into it, and in 2010, they had the McDonald v. City of Chicago case where they said you can't carry a handgun in Chicago. And they turned around and said, no, you people have got this wrong. The Second Amendment is one of those rights that you can't take away. And so we're going to incorporate it through the Due Process Clause of the 14th Amendment. We're going to make it a civil right. And every state has to allow it. Okay. Now, we move from there to 2016. And it's the Catano case. And this is a case of a woman who had a boyfriend who was beating the snot out of her, and they had a couple of kids together, and he'd be in and out of jail, and every time he'd get Ed come over and whoop her, right? But she didn't want to kill him. She just wanted to stop that tail whooping that he was giving her, and so she bought her one of those little electronic gadgets, bzz, knock you down, stun gun. And so she was going out of a store, and they had because in the state she was in, it's pretty rough on guns, but they had a metal detector. She came out, and they stopped her and thought that she had a weapon or she was shoplifting, and they searched her, and they found the stun gun, and they arrested her. Miss Catano went to jail because she had violated the law in, I want to say it was maybe not Connecticut. What's another state that starts with a C up there? Anyway. And then the older I get, the harder it is for me to remember the little things. But anyway, they carried it to court on this, and she fought it all the way to the Supreme Court. And here's what they said. We go back to Heller, and we were told how we address these situations. If in fact it's a weapon that's in common use, you can't say anything to her about it, irrespective of whether your state's got an infringement on it or not. And so we're saying that right now we've done an assay of it, and there's 200,000 stun guns in private hands. And so we're going to call that in common use. And they said, by the way, you have to understand that dangerous and unusual is a conjunctive test. You can't say that it's dangerous or that it's unusual. You have to say that it's dangerous and unusual. And if it's in common use, it does not comport to that conjunctive test. So we're saying then that stun guns are lawful for her to have, and y'all can pound sand. Now, how many silencers do you think there are in the United States right now?
Oh, I saw this number recently.
A bunch.
A whole bunch.
I mean, it's going up.
Yeah, but I mean, we're over 100,000 in each state. We're talking about it.
I mean, I saw a number. It's like 14 million?
Yeah, I think it's 14 to 18 million.
I think that's...
And that doesn't count the ones that people make at their house and they don't say anything about, you know. They get an oil can, spin it on there. So, what, they're going to make a law? In Europe, if you've got a high-powered rifle, you must have a moderator is what they call it. But if, in fact, you've got 14 million, that far surpasses 200,000, doesn't it?
Was it? Who was it? Was it Eric? Was it Eric's group? GOA? Or who was it that... Give me a second. I'm 3 days off pain pills, guys. So I'm getting to where I can think again. I haven't had a pain pill in 3 days.
Connecticut, I think.
That's actually trying to get some type of hearing or bill or something.
Yeah, they got the doctors came out last week. If you saw that, the AMA came out and said that silencers would be a big aid in stopping hearing loss.
Now,
and they think it's a good idea to go ahead and legalize those and let people have them.
Now, and I'm going to sound like a conspiracy theorist. However, you can check this. That it's easily checkable. Since the 1980s, every time we've been on the verge of a major victory, there's some kind of mass shooting incident or high profile shooting incident. Mm-hmm. We've not had one case involving a suppressor.
Except
until after the doctors, after they came out with that statement. Now all of a sudden,
and see, they've got a couple of things on that. They got a couple things on that. He printed that at home, right? Oh, now, to the average individual that doesn't know anything about guns, well, he just printed that whole thing on 3D print. No, he didn't. He printed a plastic frame on that. And then he had to get a barrel, and he had to get a fire control system, and he had to have some metal in the magazines.
Look, that gun ain't 3D printed.
No, well, you and I both know that, but that's what they're going to say.
The gun that they brought it up on is a damn Glock that's been stippled, is what the frame is.
That's what it looked like.
The Glock ain't one still in it.
So the next thing that they're saying is, well, let's think about the number of crimes that this cat committed. He used a firearm in the commission of crime. That's a federal felony. Well, number two, he shot somebody, and there's a crime for doing that. And he killed somebody, there's a crime for doing that. And he used a weapon. He had a weapon without a permit up there, and he had a silencer up there, and he didn't have a permit. You can't even get a permit for it. How many laws did he break? You want to pass about 4 or 5 more laws and think you can stop a criminal from doing something? What's wrong with these people?
John Miller said double bonus, ghost gun and silencer.
Yeah. And so, if I'm going to play conspiracy theorist with you, but which one was it, CIA, FBI, or ATF that helped him get that stuff up there? Because here we go, we're talking about a national constitutional carry, and we're talking about a silencer bill, the hearing protection bill, and we need to stop both those because we don't want the plebeians out here, the rednecks, to have this stuff. We just want the select militia to have that. Now let's take, for instance, the case over in Arkansas.
That was just cold-blooded murder.
Well, you know, the guy, yeah, he's selling a few guns at gun shows, and he's not an FFL, and he probably sold more than he's supposed to. Had they wanted him, they simply could have sat outside his office, and when he walked into work on Monday, snapped them on him and carried him in.
No, they didn't have an arrest warrant.
Yeah, but they could have done that.
No, they didn't have an arrest.
They could have gone and got an arrest warrant.
They had a search warrant.
Yeah, I get it.
All they had to do is walk up to that house and knock on the door.
Let me give you another, for instance, just like this, and for the exact same reason they did that. Waco.
Oh, that was...
David Koresh went to Winn-Dixie on Wednesday afternoon. Every Wednesday afternoon, bought a bunch of groceries and loaded them in a van and carried them home. If they wanted David Koresh, because he went personally and did that, and we all knew it. Okay? Big Sis killed him and all them children so that the people would look at this and say, oh, we can't fight the government. They're all powerful. Look at Ruby Ridge. They tried to talk that guy into making short barrel shotguns, and he wouldn't do it. And they killed his wife and his son and his dog over it. And he won the case against him and got millions of dollars of our tax money because ATF murdered his wife and his son and his dog.
Now, you know, just so people know, that little trashy piece of shit that was on the trigger that testified, yeah, he knew she was holding a baby and shot her anyway.
You realize he was also the first guy that fired around at Waco, same dude?
Okay. Now, do you know, when he got through with his service, where do you think he went to work?
I don't know, because I hadn't kept up with it.
He went to work for Troy Industries.
Oh, God.
An AR company, and they have supported this man, and anybody that would buy a product from Troy Industries is nuts.
I don't think I've got any, but if I got them, I'll get rid of them.
Terry Lee said he's really enjoying the conversation tonight, and John said the dog always gets it.
Yeah, that's right. The dog does. That's the first thing they do is they shoot the dog.
Yep.
If they killed that man, and if his wife had stepped behind him, they'd killed her too.
Yep.
And for no reason whatsoever. Because they're, like you said, they didn't have an arrest warrant because they didn't have enough to get the warrant.
They had a search warrant.
They had a search warrant and they killed him.
Now, let's go through this. It's a law. They're supposed to have their body cams on.
Right.
Everybody in the team.
Yeah.
They met up in a parking lot at Walmart, so everybody's together, right?
Yep.
Everybody left their body camera at home.
Yeah.
Then they taped up the doorbell.
That's the first thing you see them do is go over and put up this tape over the doorbell.
So
it's kind of shady.
It's murder is what it was, and there's no other way to describe it. So if you look at Ruby Ridge and Waco and that deal right there, all three of them have the same thing. ATF killed people. Now, they're supposed to work for us instead of killing us.
John says, where's PETA? When it comes to,
Yeah.
Where's PETA?
All right. So we talked about Heller. We talked about McDonald. We talked about Catano. Now let's talk about Bruin. Bruin was the last case that came up that was decided in 2023. And what it said is, if your conduct implicates the Second Amendment, then the burden shifts instantly to government to prove that its infringement on your Second Amendment right comports with historical tradition from the time of the founding. That's plain. There is no ambiguity in that whatsoever. None. And so, if in fact that is a ruling from the Supreme Court, why does one of the top dogs in the Republican Party in the House of Tennessee go around and tell everybody, well, now, Bruin's a federal thing and it doesn't have anything to do with Tennessee? And I've got a number of different representatives that said, well, he came in my office and told me, we don't have to worry about Bruin. That doesn't affect us. That's a load of whatever you haul out of the barn and put on your roses is what it is.
Let me ask you a question.
What's that?
Ask you guys. I want to ask you guys too. Okay.
Got a few comments before? Hold it.
Okay.
Steve Harden said, Tom, you're on fire tonight. Glad you're okay and healing up. Chris Mathenia, Tom, you and Richard are dropping fire.
Thank you, brother.
Go ahead.
This question I want to ask you. For somebody to be a representative or a senator,
Mm-hmm.
one would assume that they have more than one wrinkle in their gray matter.
Oh, I'm not necessarily sure of that.
Okay.
I've met too
So,
many
so
of them.
okay. In many cases, federal law preempts state law. In many cases.
Well, let me explain how that works. And you go to Article 6, Section 2 of the Federal Constitution. It says, this Constitution and all laws which shall be made in pursuance thereof, and any treaties made or which shall be made under the authority of the United States shall be the supreme law of the land, the laws and regulations of any state notwithstanding. But the first two words are this Constitution. It's not talking about this crap that ATF makes up that are rules that are not laws. That does not supersede the laws of the state. It says the Constitution and all laws which shall be made in pursuance thereof.
So, follow with me, because you put some good stuff in there. So we're going to assume, and I know assume is making an ass out of you and me, that since the Supreme Court ruled on Bruin, and they gave the very clear ruling that they gave, that is constitutional.
Yes.
Right?
Right.
Is that a safe assumption?
Yes, it is.
Therefore, it preempts anything Tennessee wants to do.
That's correct.
So how the hell can it not affect it?
Because they got more guns than we do. Let me explain. This is the whole thing right here in a nutshell. Okay? You own nothing. You don't own your place. You don't own your farm. You don't own your house. If you don't put your license, if you don't pay your registration every year, they don't let you drive down the road. If you don't pay your property tax, they'll send somebody to your house that will throw your personal stuff in the street, and they will hold an auction and sell that to somebody that will bend the knee and pay the tax. Right? And they will have on brown shirts, and they will be carrying guns that they bought with your tax money. So the whole point of the matter is government has nothing. They produce nothing. They get nothing that they don't take from somebody at the point of a gun. That's what taxes are. All right? It's theft is what it is. Now, we agree that there are certain things that need to do, and if you'll go to, I think, Article 8 of the Federal Constitution, it says they're supposed to deliver the mail, and they're supposed to protect us, and they're supposed to keep the roads, and to make sure that one state can't screw the other in commerce. And that's pretty much what they're authorized to do. This interstate commerce crap that they use to defraud us of our right to arms is absolutely anathema. But we sit here and allow it to happen because, like Pericles said, just because you don't take an interest in politics don't mean that politics will not take an interest in you. I mean, it's like H.L. Mencken said, to win, to be a politician, those people have no special talents that you and I don't have, except for getting and holding office. And the way they do that is to promise some group that pines for some specific thing and promise to fix it for them, and 9 times out of 10, that promise is worthless. And the 10th time, what they do is they steal from A to give to B, so that what we wind up with as every election is an auction of stolen goods. That's so true, and especially in the leadership. Now, people like Chris Todd, Rusty Grills, those are great guys, but they keep going, and Brock Martin, they keep going every year and trying to get this stuff. Monty Fritz, Clay Doggett. They keep going and trying to get this stuff done, and the leadership kills it every time, and they do that in committee. Rusty Grills carried a bill one year, I'll never forget this. He walked in to the Civil Justice Subcommittee, and the chairman called for him to put his bill on notice, and Rusty stood up and started, and they were playing grab tail over in the corner getting some stuff signed. The guy that gave the motion, and the boy that was supposed to give the second was over there signing a bill for Andrew Farmer at that point, and he wasn't starting, and flap, he wrapped it and said fail for lack of a second, and he did it within 5 seconds. They would not let him come back and put it back on notice the next week either, because it was a gun bill and they didn't want it to happen. And the reason that we can't get our Second Amendment rights in Tennessee back to where they were, the free men of this state have the right to keep and to bear arms for their common defense, is that they don't want you to have it. And so they play ping pong between the Senate and the House. One year the Senate is the cruel people that say you can't have it, and the next year it's House. And I'll tell you why I know that. John Stevens carried a resolution in the Senate for me. He didn't want to, but we kind of got him to do it. He said, I want him to pass it in the House before I do it over. I said, I've talked to the clerks of both houses. I know these guys too. And they say as long as the verbiage is exactly the same, you can run a resolution for a constitutional amendment in both chambers at the same time. There's no reason you can't. And so I go in and argue in front of the Senate Judiciary Committee, and what this was going to retreat Article 1, Section 26 of the Tennessee Constitution, which is our Second Amendment analog, and it was going to change it from that crap that says the legislature shall have power by law to regulate the wearing of arms with a view to prevent crime, which in 1871 the Supreme Court said was unconstitutional. It was going to change it from that wording to this simply: the citizens of this state have a right to keep, bear, and wear arms. How simple is that? Okay. So we got it. I argued it in front of the Senate Judiciary Committee, and the chairman, Todd Gardner, who characteristically never votes for a gun bill or to change the Constitution, said, Mr. Archie, you make a compelling case. And I'm not only going to vote, but I'm going to vote first, and I'm going to vote aye. And every Republican on the dais up there voted aye for that. And then 2 weeks later, on the floor of the Senate, every Republican voted for it. And the day it was brought to the House, they killed it without even letting it be brought up for consideration. Killed it dead as free lunch. And I got a note from the Attorney General said, well, we decided last year we're only going to do 3 constitutional amendments. I said, you've done 4 every year since we, well, we didn't want to make the ballot too long. The thing that got me, he said, we don't want to induce voter fatigue for having to read an extra constitutional amendment, and it's 15 freaking words. That's the most piece of garbage that I've ever heard. But that's what we wind up with right now.
John says you definitely need to have Richard back again.
Oh, yes.
Terry Lee says all government agencies that have anything to do with firearms don't want the common people to be armed whatsoever.
That's correct.
Neither do their handlers.
Mm-mm.
Tom. What?
You didn't.
What?
You and that leg, baby.
Yeah. He's got restless leg syndrome, what he's got.
I do.
Yeah.
Really bad. I got nerve damage, and sometimes it starts. And
Kyle Petty said we're ready for some voter fatigue.
Amen, Kyle.
Well, here's the thing. Every one of you guys, then, what you need to do is make sure that you get the TFA emails every week during session, because we'll let you know what's going on.
Guys, that's free. Even if you
is.
don't join, all you have to do is ask for it. You get 1 email a week.
That's right.
It's easy to digest.
Yep.
And these guys, TFA is not going to blow your inbox up and send you 27 million.
And we're not going to ask you for money.
No.
We don't do that. Now,
Just know that we're down to 20% over here.
Okay.
Just letting you know.
So we got to be ready to wrap it up.
I would say in the next, just a little bit.
okay.
So
Here's the thing that I would challenge people to do. Read those 4 cases. I will send them to you. You can put that up. Secondarily, make sure you understand who the committee chairs and the House and the Senate are. All right?
let's get a list of that and post it.
Characteristically, well, we don't know who they
No,
are.
I mean,
yet.
I'd be after.
That's the big deal right now, because the election just happened and
Right.
nobody's told us. We kind of think we know, but we don't know until they come out.
That's what I was going to follow up as soon as it's
Hopefully
posted.
we don't wind up that crap they got in Texas where they put Democrats in charge, but I don't think that's going to happen. Even Cameron Sexton has never done that. Now, he'll put some Democrats on any committee that will just absolutely wear you out having to watch them. But anyway, they don't have any strength because they ain't got... The guy over here in Jackson that was the caucus chair of the Republicans and the senator, when they asked him why he wasn't going to run, he said, well, hell, I can have a caucus meeting in my SUV in the parking lot, because there was only 5 senators there that were Democrats. And that's about the way it still is. Why don't we get these gun bills passed? Make sure you know who the committee chairs are and light them up. It's when I had that first apartment when I first got married. On Friday afternoon, we'd come in from work and I'd have a paycheck and we'd go buy groceries. And so it would be dark when we came in. And when we turned the light on, the cockroaches ran to the corners. All right. What you've got to do as a citizen is you got to turn the light on them cockroaches at the General Assembly. Because you got to shine that light on them, and that's what keeps them from taking your rights away.
You're right.
So, I don't know how much longer you want me to go because I talk all night. You know?
Well, I'm trying to formulate a quote in my head, and like I said, I've been off all the prescription medication. This is the third day, but I'm still not completely clear-headed. But even the scripture tells us that the one thing that evil fears the light.
That's right.
That's a strongly paraphrased. I was trying to think of the passage out of the Gospel of John, but it's not going to formulate.
Well, and we're not supposed to take a basket and put it over our light. If you got one, you're supposed to shine it.
That's a fact.
And if you have talents, what you're supposed to do is use them. Because if you don't, then the master is going to be very upset with you when he gets back. And one of my talents is running my mouth. I got a good friend in Texas, and what he does is he helps people get elected. And he wrote a book. It's called The Goal is to Win. It's a great book. Brett, I can't think of his last name. It's terrible. Brett Rogers. And you can get it on Amazon. It's good. And what it does, it gives you about 5 different things you need to do to run. But what he says in there that caught my attention was he says, talk is cheap. Do a lot of it. And so therefore, I do a lot of talking. I do my YouTube stuff. I go and give speeches to any group that wants to hear about the Second Amendment and the Tennessee Constitution. And I spend as much time as I can trying to educate the general population as to how bad they're being screwed by government. And if they don't think it's not happening, then again, they got them soft spots that I don't have. So it's necessary that you get involved, get off the couch, because you don't bitch if you're not involved. If you do, you're just flapping your gums. And I think the Bible says that's as a sounding brass and tinkling cymbal. You know, so I told a group one time, and there's a gentleman who is an elected official that it got to him. And I told him, I said, the one thing that's going to happen when I meet my maker is I'll be convicted of the sins I did, but I will not be convicted of sins of omission. They will be of commission. Because I'm not going to let any day go that I don't do everything that I can to move forward the right of the people to keep and bear arms, because it's so vitally important. The Republic can't stand without it.
And I'm going to put in right there, again, this is not, yes, we specialize in the right to keep and bear arms. The right to keep and bear arms is the anchor for every other right.
That is correct.
So when we lose it, it's like I went back to John Kerry.
Yeah.
Okay, there's a real winner.
Yeah.
What's her name? Sheila Brown something, that last Supreme Court justice that the my God. Okay.
Jackson.
Yeah.
She's
both
awful.
Publicly have stood up and said we've got to do something about this First Amendment.
Yeah.
So, because it's preventing us from regulating speech.
You have to go back to what George Washington said, that if we lose the First Amendment right to free speech, that we may be led dumb and ignorant like sheep to slaughter. How many years ago was that? That's what Bruin says, is that you have to go back to the text and history of the people that sacrificed blood and treasure for this nation. And so the closer you get to the founding, and they said, Scalia said in Heller that we wrote the Constitution for the ages. And people say, well, it's an old document and it doesn't have anything to do. And they talk about, well, they didn't have machine guns and AR-15s. And what Scalia said there is bordering on the frivolous. Many say that the Second Amendment protects only those arms that were in existence at the time of the founding. But that's not the way we treat the First Amendment. It's not the way we treat the Fourth Amendment. And it's absurd. And so the Second Amendment protects every arm that exists that can be used to strike at another or be held in the hand for offense or defense. It's that simple. Read the text is what we've got to do.
Steve Harden mentioned John 3:20.
I think that may be the one. Um, for the light come into the world, and the world knew not the light. And the light shined into the darkness. Oh, well.
Let me tell you, Steve Harden is a based individual. He gets it. He's involved. He's a good friend. I taught him in high school. Actually did. He was a student of mine.
Did you teach him anything?
He was a pretty sharp guy. He had a little buddy that they tried to get in a lot of trouble all the time, but I tried to keep him lined up. But Steve's smart as a whip's what he is. And he's a good, base, solid, conservative individual. He's a friend of mine, and I love him to death.
Steve's a pretty good friend around here, too.
Yeah.
Kind of got free run of the place if he wants to come in. Don't see him as much as we used to. I think the dealership's keeping him busy.
Dwayne McKegg said, so glad you guys are doing these.
And we're going to do some more stuff. Look, I want to ask a question right now. Richard doesn't know I'm going to ask this question. Nobody but me knows I'm going to ask this question. Because I just decided I was going to ask. First Saturday in September, right, is always the
Annual event.
We have TFA annual event. It's in Lebanon.
That's correct. At the Farm Bureau Expo Center.
Great event. Good time.
And it's our 30th year anniversary, so we're going to put on a show this time.
But let me ask something. West Tennessee. Would you support a TFA event on this end of the state?
We're actually looking at doing that. We think we need to do
John kind of whispered in my ear that you and him had spoke about it.
That's correct.
And he asked me what I thought, and I told him I didn't know. You seem to be able to get. I'll just say it straight. You get better participation out of folks in Middle and East Tennessee than you do West Tennessee.
Generally. Yeah, I think that's true because everybody over here thinks we live in this red state that you've got all the freedom and rights that you want, and they're just uneducated about it.
You know, it's like I do a lot of the turkey banquets and all these kind of things, and they were like, you know, can you do this? No, I got to do TFA. It's more important. I got to do, and we've tried to educate those people.
I've got absolutely. That's three different absolutelys. Three different people. One says, yes, sir. So,
well, guys, you know, send us emails, drop comments, and I can guarantee you Richard and I will be watching to see what comes in. Not that I have anything to do with it, because I don't. Except for the fact that we would help sponsor it.
Yeah, we're actively seeking right now getting, and I'm the West Tennessee director, so I would be involved over here in West Tennessee. Mm-hmm. John's in Middle Tennessee. We've got a guy we're fixing to put over in East Tennessee as a board member. And then we're going to have a facilitator statewide, and we're getting ready to offer her a position that will actually be a paid position. The rest of us are all volunteers. John or I, either one, get a dime out of this. But we're going to have a paid staff member that can help arrange these things, and she's really good. I hope she takes the job. And then she will have in each district then, underneath her, another person who is a second facilitator that will work within the chapters. I mean, if you look at it, here in Henry County are the only two chapters in West Tennessee of TFA. 99% of the people that I talk to at an event have never heard of us. And we're doing our best to get out there on social media and do everything else, but everybody's so cotton picking stayed in West Tennessee and think they got everything they need that they're not aware.
Yep.
And you know, it's been that way. I don't care if you do gun shows. I don't care if you're doing. The only thing I ever seen West Tennessee really support used to be the old, when we did just old knife shows, and that's been 40, 50 years ago.
Kyle Petty said yes. Chris Ray, I'm in. He said also going to get my TFA membership next week when I get paid. Dwayne McKegg, he said I would, and we'll try to go to Lebanon if need be.
Well, Lebanon is going to be a great event.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's going to be. For the last 2 years, let's tell the people who we had up there as our prime speakers. 2 years ago, we had Don Trump Jr.
Yep.
And John Rich came in.
Yep.
John Rich is a big supporter of
Yes, he
TFA.
is.
Yeah.
And he came in, did about 4 songs, and
Not
wouldn't
only,
take a dime.
not only is he a big supporter of TFA, he loves Jesus.
Yes, he does that. And then the next year, we had Pete Hegseth as our featured speaker, who's going to wind up being the Secretary of Defense. And so we've had some heavy hitters, and people say John Rich is a Tennessean, Pete Hegseth is now a Tennessean, and in fact, I sat and talked for him for about 15 minutes when he got on stage. If you can go to the TFA website and look under our podcast, and you can see all Eric Pratt and everybody in speeches they made. But he made this statement point blank. He said, I learned more in 10 minutes talking to Archie about Tennessee history and gun things than I ever knew before. He asked me personally if I would make him some videos and send to him to show to his kids so that they can understand. And I did that because he's homeschooling.
You know, he is a, you know, okay, it's Pete Hegseth, whatever, you know, news guy, whatever. But he came over and sat down with Bird and myself for a little while. I guess just catch a break and have a little something to drink. And he was really cool. Just sit there and sit and talk to.
Yeah, let me tell you, he's a 20-year man in the military. He's got 2 different Ivy League degrees. He's smart as a whip. He understands what it takes to win a war because he's been in one. And they talk about, oh, well, he doesn't have any administrative. Yeah, he took war fighters in and won and came back alive and brought his soldiers back with him. He's getting this huge list of the people that were underneath his direct orders, and they're signing up and saying, this is the guy we want. And I've done everything I can to support him in that because I can tell you he's a crackerjack. He's smart as a whip. And I don't care if he got drunk when he came back from Iraq.
Who cares?
That's, you know, it's hard for a man to go over and fight and shoot and kill and see his buddies blown up and stuff. And, you know, every one of them's got some kind of PTSD, but that beats the living hell out of these rascals that have never put on a uniform or ever carried a gun, like Tim Waltz. The vice president, you know, I was all this, and he never showed up in a war zone, ever. Lied.
He's AWOL.
Yeah. He just left his men, retired before they went, you know, all that kind of crap. And Pete Hegseth is the right kind of dude. You know, but that's the type of girls that we run around with right there.
It was really neat getting to talk to him, and you know, I didn't think a whole lot about it. You know, I get to do enough of these, like you guys' event.
Yeah.
And then I'll get to go to some of Eric's, and you know, this year I won't be at SHOT Show because I'm not doing this at SHOT Show. But we'll be at GOA. We'll be at probably NRA.
Hey, listen, that Gold's event now. If NRA changes their stripes, because I've been a life member since I was 21 years old. All right. I'm an endowment member now. I've given them lots of money, and I wouldn't give them the sweat off of my nether regions at this point, because I'm going to tell you what they did. That individual we were talking about a while ago that got popped for the DUI in Georgia, they gave him an orange card, and he's never voted for a Second Amendment issue. In fact, he told us when we did the parks deal, said, look, if you don't allow the municipalities to opt out of this, I'm not going to let it come to committee. And that's how they kill these bills, is in committee. But that's the rascal that kept you from being... When we passed the parks bill in 2010, instantly, MTAS sent out and said, hey, if you are a municipality or a city, you can opt out of this and you don't even have to have a meeting. All you got to do is just say you want to. I found out about it because a city councilman in Jackson called me that night and sent me the email. And I showed up the next day at the mayor's office, and we went into that meeting, and we stopped Jackson from denying us the ability to carry in a park.
So let's do this. We're about to run out of battery.
All right.
Richard, between us, we got through it.
Yep.
Y'all, Richard's he's suffering with sciatica, and I got a broke leg, messed up knee with a big rod in it. So we actually set this up. Oh hell, back before Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
We were at the Frankie Latch show.
Right.
Yeah, it was over to Frankie's.
Hey, do you know Frankie quit?
No.
Yeah. Frankie ain't doing radio no more.
Oh, no.
He got tired of him down there and turned his resignation in. I was supposed to do it tomorrow, but he ain't going to be there. He called me last week and said, I'm done. They treated me bad and I'm finished.
Do you blame him?
I can't. Because, I mean, you saw what that studio was like. It looked about like this right here as far as trying to do a radio show every day.
Well, you know, I've heard a whole lot of both sides of that, so I'm just going to stay out of it.
Well,
My name's Bennett. I ain't in it.
yeah. See, here's the other side of it. I've been doing Frankie's show for 18 years now.
And
And it's given me a lot of opportunity to get information out.
And you know, no, I'm not saying. I think Frankie did a great show. I think he did a lot of good stuff. I hate to see him leave. You know, does he maybe follow everybody else and go to the?
Yeah, it's very possible.
You know what I'm saying?
But I asked him if he was going to do that, and he said, no, I'm done. So,
well, you and I should go over to the other one and get us a show.
well, that's, you know, I'm probably going to have to talk to him because he's been after me for years to get over there.
Hey.
And I had agreed with Frankie that as long as he had a show, I would be exclusive.
Look,
But he ain't there now.
I was supposed to have a meeting with him Monday. So if you want to do something together, that'd be great.
Hey, we'll have a talk with him. Because like I said, he's been after me for years to come over there. He said, Archie, you're entertaining.
Actually, a couple of the
I
owners
want
are
to tell
friends of
you,
mine
our
too.
viewership has been amazing tonight.
And so anyway, guys,
Especially almost 2 hours.
we're running out of battery. I wish we could stay longer. I'm gonna get Richard back.
I'll come back.
We may even do a special. We may even do a special event where we take Richard over to our favorite tavern, Trenton at Scott's, and broadcast from there,
Hey,
and have us a big steak.
that sounds like a good idea.
You know,
Yeah.
man, he's got fillets like this thick.
They're so good.
They don't have cooks. They got chefs.
They have chefs.
Ah,
Very good.
Brian is, and you know, Scott come up as a chef. He come up as and out of Chicago, so he's got a whole Chicago menu that's real, not just what people call Chicago. It's what he learned to cook in Chicago.
it'll be interesting. Try that out.
Great place.
John Miller said, great show. Brent Callicott, very informative.
Brent,
Thank you.
thank you. I got your card. Thank you. But guys, thank you so much. I'm gonna be in and out of the store. I'll be here all day tomorrow. I'm gonna be here as much as I can. I've got to go back and see the surgeon Monday. And find out we're gonna do something about this knee because it's just not holding weight.
Hopefully it's just a brace.
Yeah, hopefully. I
Hopefully.
mean, everything's gone well so far. So, thank you guys. And I'm going to say it just like this. As always, God bless America.
Absolutely.
And God bless you. And I can't walk off tonight.
So just wait.
Yeah, there you go. Neither one.